Okay, so let's dive in. Think about maybe the smallest thing you did today.
Hmm.
Like maybe it was just pausing for a second before drinking your coffee, or I don't know, sending a quick text to check in on someone.
Right, those little moments.
Yeah, exactly. We tend to just gloss over them, don't we? I think they're, well, insignificant.
We often do.
But what if they're not? What if those tiny actions actually have this surprising power? Like they're the little brushstrokes making up the big picture of our lives.
That's a really lovely way to put it. In many ancient ways of thinking, there's this deep recognition that even the smallest gestures, they carry weight.
Okay.
It kind of ties into that idea that everything's connected, right? That every action, no matter how small it seems, it sets something in motion.
Like a chain reaction.
Sort of. Imagine dropping a tiny pebble into a really still pond.
Yeah.
The splash itself is small, but then you see those ripples spreading out right across the whole surface. Our actions, well, they could be like those pebbles.
I like that image, the ripples. It really sticks. So it's not always about these huge, grand gestures we think we need to make.
Not necessarily, no. It seems to be more about how these smaller moments, these smaller actions, build up over time.
But it can be difficult to actually see that, can't it? How the little things really add up to something significant.
Oh, absolutely. The effects, the consequences,
Yeah.
they aren't always immediate or obvious. Think about, say, a single drop of rain landing on a big stone.
Okay. Seems like nothing, right?
Exactly. On its own, it's inconsequential. But imagine countless drops falling again and again, persistently.
Over years, yeah.
Over years, exactly. Even the hardest rock eventually gets worn away. It's that consistent, steady accumulation of small influences that, well, gradually reshapes the whole landscape.
That reminds me of a story I heard once about a young monk, I think, who felt like everything he was doing was pointless.
Ah, yes, that's a classic teaching. Really timeless.
He couldn't see any progress, despite trying hard.
Right. So picture this person, feeling totally discouraged, maybe sitting by a stream,
Hmm.
and they're just watching the water flowing
Mm.
constantly over this big, stubborn rock.
Yeah.
And they might feel like their own efforts are just as useless against, the big challenges they're facing.
I can imagine that feeling.
But the wisdom in that story is about seeing the cumulative effect. Each moment, each small act of just keeping going, it matters. Just like the water, drop by drop, eventually changes the stone, our consistent efforts, even if they feel tiny, they gradually transform even the toughest obstacles.
So the real power is in the consistency, not necessarily the intensity of the effort.
That's it exactly. It's consistency over intensity. Those seemingly insignificant efforts repeated day after day can wear down even the most, formidable barriers in life.
That's quite a shift in perspective. And it's fascinating because, modern science actually seems to be saying something similar now.
It really does.
With neuroscience, understanding how our brains literally change through repetition.
Yes. It's amazing how our brains kind of mirror this whole principle of gradual change. Every time we make a small conscious choice, maybe to learn a tiny new thing, or practice being a bit kinder, or cultivate a slightly healthier habit, we're essentially laying down new tracks, new pathways in our minds.
Like carving a groove.
Exactly like carving a groove. And those pathways get stronger every time we repeat the action, until eventually doing that thing feels more natural, almost automatic. It's the neurological reason why tiny decisions can actually snowball into really significant, lasting change.
It makes me think of people like James Clear. He wrote that book, Atomic Habits.
Oh, right. His story is a powerful example of this.
Yeah, because he had that really serious injury, and his recovery was all about focusing on incredibly small improvements, wasn't it? Like, almost unnoticeably small at first.
Precisely. His experience really shows that you don't necessarily need massive heroic action to get significant change.
Just tiny steps.
Tiny steps. Focusing on getting, just say, 1% better each day. It sounds small, but that compounds over time, leading to exponential growth.
Right.
When you face a huge challenge, the instinct might be to try and leap over it.
Yeah, go big or go home.
Exactly. But his story really highlights the incredible impact of just those tiny, incremental steps. It wasn't about some huge effort, but about consistently practicing tiny habits.
And his success sharing that message kind of proves the point.
It really does. It underscores how effective that patient, persistent effort can be. It's just like the water wearing with a stone, really slow, steady, but powerful.
James Clear's journey, it really puts into contrast our our modern tendency, maybe, to want everything instantly. Quick fixes. Makes you think, why do we dismiss the power of these small actions so often? We live in such a fast-paced world now. Everything feels immediate.
That's a really important point. Our culture today, it definitely conditions us to expect instant gratification, doesn't it?
Totally. You see it everywhere.
We see the highlights online, the curated success stories. What we don't often see are the countless unseen hours, the practice, the tiny steps that actually built that success.
Right, the behind-the-scenes grind.
Exactly. And that can make us feel discouraged when our own steady, quiet efforts don't produce some huge dramatic result right away.
Yeah, it feels like you're not getting anywhere.
It's like planting a seed and expecting a full-grown tree the next morning. It just doesn't work like that.
That tree analogy, that really clicks. It helps visualize the whole thing. Because planting a tree, it is a long-term thing, isn't it? You have to prepare the soil, water it every day, and just trust. Trust that something's happening underground, even when you can't see the growth yet.
Precisely. And our own personal growth or big goals.
Yeah.
They're very much the same. They need that consistent daily tending. Watering those small practices builds the strong roots for whatever we hope will flourish later on.
So what about, like, everyday examples, things we do all the time?
Well, think about the subtle but very real impact of just ordinary actions. Take tidying up your room or your desk.
Okay, yeah. A simple chore.
Seems like a minor task, right?
Yeah.
But what happens right away? You get a more ordered physical space.
True. Feels better.
But often, the effects go deeper than just what you see, don't they?
Absolutely. I find that when my space is tidier, my mind feels clearer, less cluttered.
Exactly.
That small shift in the environment, it genuinely seems to affect my mental energy, my focus. It's like that one little act of cleaning sets off a kind of ripple effect. It can boost your mood, maybe make you feel more motivated for other things, even if you don't consciously connect it back to just, putting things away.
This subtle connection between things really highlights how important our intention can be.
Intention. How so?
Well, many wisdom traditions emphasize bringing awareness, bringing presence to each moment, even the small ones, especially the small ones maybe.
Okay.
When we approach even routine tasks with that kind of presence, they start to feel different. They take on more meaning.
Like, doing the dishes. That's usually just something to get through.
Precisely. Instead of just rushing to finish, what if you brought your full attention to it?
To washing dishes.
Yeah. Feel the warmth of the water, the texture of the soap, maybe hold the simple intention to cleanse. Suddenly that chore becomes an opportunity.
An opportunity for what?
To practice patience, maybe, to focus your mind, even just to appreciate having dishes to wash and water to wash them with. It's about bringing a sense of purpose into the mundane, just by being present.
Okay, I see. So, thinking about all this, it really boils down to noticing those individual drops, as you called them, the drops we're adding to our own lives every single day, and asking ourselves, are these drops constructive? Are they creating positive ripples? Or are we, maybe without realizing it, creating little whirlpools that kind of pull us off track?
That's the core of it, I think. Because it is the cumulative effect of all those small choices, day in and day out, that truly shapes our path, our journey.
So it's an ongoing thing, a practice of being aware, being intentional.
Exactly. Every thought we decide to nurture, every word we choose to speak, every action we take, no matter how tiny it seems, it's a drop contributing to the flow of our own lives and ultimately to the much larger flow of the world around us too.
So tying these ideas together, the main message seems to be that consistency, even in really small, quiet ways, is actually much more powerful than just occasional big bursts of effort.
Beautifully put, yes.
Lasting change, real transformation. This doesn't usually come from some huge dramatic event, but just from showing up. Showing up every day with intention, even in the little things.
That captures it perfectly. And it connects deeply to that understanding we touched on earlier that everything is interconnected.
Right. Our actions don't just affect us.
Exactly. They don't happen in a vacuum. They create ripples that spread out, influencing others, influencing the collective experience. You hear stories, sometimes symbolic, sometimes maybe more literal.
Like the 100th monkey idea.
Perhaps something like that, yes. The idea that when enough individuals start to adopt a new way of being or a new understanding, it can trigger a wider shift in the group consciousness.
So our small positive choices matter beyond just ourselves.
It suggests they might. Those seemingly small acts, a moment of kindness, choosing patience when it's hard, offering generosity without expecting return, these things might actually contribute to elevating the collective atmosphere in subtle yet profound ways.
That's actually a really comforting thought, that even the quietest good deed or moment of inner calm might be contributing to something bigger.
And speaking of inner calm, you mentioned earlier that mindfulness isn't just about sitting down to meditate formally.
No, not at all. At its core, mindfulness is simply about bringing a focused awareness to whatever is happening right now, whatever you're doing.
So you can be mindful doing anything.
Absolutely. Take something totally ordinary, like brushing your teeth.
Yeah?
Instead of letting your mind race ahead to the day's worries or drift off somewhere else, just bring your attention right there.
Yes.
To the sensations, like the taste of the toothpaste, the feeling of the brush.
Exactly. The simple physical act of caring for yourself in that small way. And in that moment of presence, maybe you can feel a little gratitude for your health, or perhaps even set a quiet, positive intention for the day ahead.
Turning a routine into a mini practice.
Precisely. And the benefits of cultivating this kind of present moment awareness, well, they've been widely explored. People report links to things like reduced stress, better focus, more emotional balance.
Things we could all use more of.
Indeed. Perhaps, listeners could try experimenting. Maybe just pick one regular daily activity, making tea, walking to the bus stop, anything. And for 1 week, try doing it with full awareness. See what shifts.
That sounds really doable. A gentle experiment. And you also mentioned how our brains literally change with repetition. Neuroplasticity.
Yes, that concept is so powerful. It reminds us that our brains aren't fixed. They have this incredible ability to reshape themselves based on what we consistently do and think.
So repeated actions strengthen those brain pathways.
They do. It makes the action easier, more automatic over time, which aligns perfectly with the ancient idea of bhavana, or cultivation, developing positive qualities through steady, consistent effort.
Like cultivating patience or kindness?
Or gratitude. A very simple, practical way to work with this is something like keeping a gratitude journal, or even just a gratitude jar.
How does that work?
Just taking a few moments each day to consciously notice and maybe jot down things you feel grateful for. It sounds simple, but it's not just a nice exercise. You're actively training your brain to scan for and focus on the positive, the abundance, rather than just the lack or the problems.
So you're literally rewiring your focus.
In a way, yes. Strengthening those gratitude pathways.
And it's amazing how these ancient wisdom ideas and modern science seem to be pointing to the same truths.
They often do converge, don't they?
You also used that analogy of the bamboo tree earlier, which really struck me.
Ah, yes. Nature's such a profound teacher.
Because bamboo, it spends years just growing roots underground, right? You don't see anything happening.
For a long time, yes. Years sometimes. Just building that extensive, unseen root system, and then suddenly it shoots up incredibly quickly.
Right. It's that hidden growth phase.
And that's such a powerful metaphor for personal development, isn't it? Progress isn't always visible or linear. Often we need that patience, that trust, knowing that our consistent efforts are building a strong foundation deep down, even when we can't see the results on the surface yet.
That applies to so many things.
So many areas. Personal growth, definitely. Building strong relationships, developing skills for a career, improving health and well-being. Think about getting fitter. Those small workouts, day after day, eventually lead to noticeable strength or endurance.
Or like Warren Buffett's snowball effect with
Yeah.
investing, small amounts compounding.
Exactly. It's the same principle of slow, steady accumulation leading to significant results over time.
It's a good reminder to be patient with ourselves and just trust the process sometimes. And then you mentioned something that sounded almost opposite, effortless action. Wu Wei. How does that fit with consistent effort?
It can sound like a contradiction at first glance. But Wu Wei, or effortless action, isn't really about being lazy or doing nothing.
Okay.
It's more about acting in harmony with the natural flow of things, releasing that constant urge to force outcomes, to control everything.
So less striving.
Less straining, perhaps. It's about finding a state where your actions arise more spontaneously, more effectively, because you're not fighting against the current or creating unnecessary tension within yourself.
Can you give an example?
Well, there's an old Zen story about carrying a full cup of tea. If you grip the cup super tightly, white-knuckled, you're actually more likely to spill it because you're tense and rigid.
Right, you'd be jerky.
Exactly. But if you hold it with a relaxed, focused awareness, allowing for natural balance, you can carry it smoothly. That's closer to the feeling of Wu Wei.
Okay, I think I get that. So in practical terms.
It might look like focusing more on setting clear intentions rather than getting rigidly attached to specific, narrow goals. For instance, setting an intention to nourish your body feels different, more flowing, than rigidly fixating on losing exactly 5 pounds by Friday. The intention guides your actions gently, allowing for flexibility, rather than creating stress around a fixed outcome.
So it's like working with the river instead of trying to swim upstream.
That's a great way to think about it, yes. And this all leads back to the idea that even our smallest choices can have these unexpectedly large effects down the line.
Like the butterfly effect.
Exactly like the butterfly effect, but in our human lives, a butterfly flaps its wings in Brazil, and theoretically, it sets off tiny atmospheric changes that could contribute to a tornado in Texas weeks later.
Right, the idea of interconnectedness and sensitive dependence on initial conditions.
Precisely. Every decision we make, every action we take, no matter how small, sends out ripples. Ripples that travel in ways we might never fully grasp or foresee.
Can you think of like a real-world example of that? Small actions leading to big change.
Well, think about someone like Malala Yousafzai. Her initial actions, simply speaking out for girls' education in her local community, were incredibly brave, yes, but perhaps seemed small against the forces she faced.
True. Just a young girl speaking her mind.
But those small acts of courage, that persistent voice, sparked a global conversation and movement. It's a powerful example of how seemingly small beginnings driven by conviction can ignite monumental change.
Wow. Yeah, that really underscores the point.
It reminds us that everything is dependently originated, as some traditions say. Everything arises in connection with everything else. Our individual choices are crucial threads woven into this vast, intricate tapestry of life. Never underestimate the potential impact of a single decision made with awareness and intention.
Okay, so this is all incredibly inspiring, but also maybe a little overwhelming. How can listeners actually start integrating this into their daily lives in a practical way?
That's a great question. Perhaps a gentle exploration maybe over 7 days. Like a small challenge, but a very gentle one.
Okay, what would that look like?
Maybe each day, focus on just one small mindful intention. For example, day 1, just take a few moments to truly appreciate something simple you usually take for granted.
Like the taste of water or the feeling of sun on your skin.
Exactly. Day 2, offer one small, unexpected gesture of kindness to someone, a compliment, holding a door, sending that text we talked about earlier. Day 3, maybe just bring your awareness fully to your breath for just 5 conscious breaths, several times during the day.
Simple but grounding.
Day 4, learn one tiny new thing, anything that sparks your curiosity, even just a new word or a fact about birds. Day 5, move your body gently for just 5 or 10 minutes in a way that feels good, not punishing.
Okay.
Day 6, perhaps let go of one small physical item you no longer need or use. Declutter one tiny corner. And day 7, take just 5 quiet minutes to reflect on the week, noticing any small shifts or feelings.
That sounds really manageable, not intimidating at all.
The aim is just to offer a simple structure, to consciously practice these small intentional actions and maybe begin to feel their cumulative effect, even subtly.
I like that. It makes it feel possible.
And one final thought, perhaps. Remember that sometimes the most profound growth doesn't come from striving harder and harder,
That femme.
but from letting go a little.
Yeah.
From surrendering to the process. Trusting that your small actions, when they come from a place of sincerity and awareness, will guide you in the right direction.
Trusting the ripples.
Trusting the ripples. Think of your life like a painting that's constantly unfolding. Every single choice, every small action is another brushstroke. It might seem insignificant on its own, but it adds to the depth, the texture, the overall beauty and meaning of the masterpiece you're creating.
So the power is always right here, right now, in the next small choice.
It always is. The power to shape that unfolding picture lies entirely within the present choices you make. So maybe the invitation for everyone listening is just to identify one small thing, one tiny action they feel drawn to take right now, today, that feels aligned with who they want to be or where they want to go.
And just commit to that one small step.
Just commit to that one small step, knowing that you're not alone in doing it, that you're part of this incredible interconnected web of life, supporting and being supported. That single stroke matters.